I'm joined by Lieutenant General David Deptula, Dean of the Mitchell Institute for Aerospace Studies, one of our standby go-to guys like Admiral Stavridis last hour and the senators who join us. But in the case of a day like today, I like to talk to people who actually know what they're talking about. General Deptula has a new article in Forbes on to deter war with Iran, U.S. should use its asymmetric edge, air power. Welcome, General. Good morning. What do you think of the way this week has been managed?
Well, good morning, Hugh. I would tell you that the outcome probably could not be much better, given the serious nature of the actions that have occurred and the need to basically what I lay out in the article is establish the conditions to to continue to rein in Iran and make sure that they understand that there are consequences to their continued malign activity. And I think we saw that, and they realize that in the actions that the president has taken. General
Deptula, my reporting is that had the Iranians killed Americans in their, quote, response, close quote, to me, it's a fireworks display since they told us it was coming and no Americans were killed, although they may have wanted to kill Americans, according to General Milley. Had they done so, our response would have been massive. And Admiral Stavridis just told me last hour, when we send the B-52s, they can strike from a place that the Iranians cannot reach, and they can strike with deadly precision. Your assessment?
Well, no, it's actually, I have to tell you, in some of my earlier discussions with folks, one of the items that I recommended was the deployment of 6 B-2s to Diego Garcia, which is outside the range of where, it turns out that what they did was they sent B-52s instead of B-2s. It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is that those aircraft can project precise power over long distances, and they don't even have to be forward deployed in the region. That's the beauty of the stealth B-2 bomber or B-52s or any kind of intercontinental range bomber. You don't have to be close, but by being close sends the message to the mullahs, all right, that there are consequences to your actions. That's what deterrence is all about. They need to understand that if they continue to take malign activity, they will suffer the consequences. And this regime only understands power. They don't think like an average American in the United States. So people that are projecting fear instead of power and are so concerned about the Iranian reaction are not going to deter Iran. We need to do it through a position of strength, not weakness. And that's what this deployment shows that we're willing to do.
My advice to the people that I know that were involved in this, in Team Trump, during the course of time when we did not know other than that Iran had launched missiles, was shock and awe, refineries, grids, bunker busters, sink their Navy, blind them, then do it again. You agree with that assessment? That's Absolutely. A civilian's emotional response to our troops being attacked.
Yeah, well, I think it summarizes quite well exactly in a very summary fashion the efforts and the actions that need to be taken to continue to rein in the world's number one terrorist state. This notion that Soleimani was somehow some sort of official that should not have been attacked is absolutely ridiculous.
Now, it also seems to me, General, this makes the case for continuing to build the sorts of platforms that do not have to engage at ground level with terrorist regimes or with superpower regimes like China. We only have one peer, and it's China. But there are lots of bad actors out there, and this whole sequence underscores the need to be able to stand off with our ballistic missiles, not nuclear, but our ballistic missile submarines, the ones that are equipped with cruise missiles, our bombers, and our frigates that are armed with hypersonics, and shoot down whatever we need to shoot down and blow up whatever we need to blow up. Isn't that the essence of what we need to be in the next century?
Well, yeah, look, yes, you lay out the kinds of capabilities that the United States needs to continue to refine. Adversaries, potential adversaries like China, have gone to school on how the United States has succeeded, particularly in Desert Storm. That was the model that we need to think about. That wasn't a endless conflict. It was one that we accomplished our military objectives in 43 days. And the first 39 of those 43 days were done without any troops on the ground. I'm not saying you don't necessarily need them. We need all the elements of each one of the services, but we need to use them in the right place and at the right time. Power projection allowing us to get through the anti-access area denial capabilities of our adversaries completely destroys that particular strategy. And what you laid out is the kind of set of capabilities in the future that the United States military needs to acquire.
Now, of course, if we had sent planes over Iran, as I suspect we would have done had any American troops been killed, they would have attempted to shoot them down. So as a professional, would they have been able to?
The answer is it depends. Everything is situation dependent. It depends on the type of surface-to-air missile systems that are used. Now, the Russians have just sold the Iranians some of the most highly capable surface-to-air missile systems that exist, the S-300 and the S-400 series. And clearly, what we call fourth-generation airplanes in the military, those that do not have low observable or stealth characteristics, are extraordinarily vulnerable to those kinds of modern air defense systems. But you can put together tactics, techniques, and procedures that before you put those airplanes into harm's way, you take out those surface-to-air missile systems. This is the value of low observability and stealth that is resident in aircraft like the F-22 and the F-35, and that's why we need to continue to build more F-35s and more rapidly, is they're low observable. So they're not as vulnerable. They're not invisible, but they dramatically reduce the engagement capability of an adversary's surface-to-air missile systems.
Now, General, I'm just a civilian. I watch pretty closely, though. I've never seen before what they did in Utah, the so-called elephant walk. And I had never seen 50-plus F-35s lined up and taking off. Do you suppose our friends in Tehran saw that tape?
I hope so. I mean, that is also part of deterrence. Generally, the United States is not a very good applier of information, and using information is one of the key elements of our security pillars. And I'm sure that they have observed that, and that's one of the tenets of deterrence, is by making sure our adversaries understand what our capabilities are.
Last question, General. How long would it have taken for those F-35s in Utah to get to theater?
Well, again, from the time that they launch till the time that they get there, the actual flight time, you're looking at 12 to 14 hours. And then you got to put in their preparation, briefing time, and all of that. But you can deploy a squadron inside of 24 hours.
You see, I think the American people don't really know what we've got. I don't think the Pentagon has spent a lot of time telling people what we can do over the last 20 years, because the war has been costly in lives and treasure and in wounded soldiers, and we don't like to talk about it very much. But the military, I think in the last 4 years, is starting to look pretty damn good again after depleting its resources. But we got to keep spending, General.
No, that's true. And it's important for the audience to understand that, look, dealing with Iran is a completely different kind of military set of operations than the wars that we engaged in Iraq and Afghanistan. So dealing with Iran is not going to involve counterinsurgency, nation building, or long and drawn-out operations. It is going to be quick, it's going to be violent, and it's going to be to eliminate their ability to function as a terrorist state.
Well
That's
said.
A different kind of war.
Well said, General David Deptula. You ought to go read. I've tweeted out his article in Forbes on this. Dean of the Mitchell Institute for Aerospace Studies. Follow him on Twitter at Deptula_David.